They said I would never be anything. They said I was a mistake, a disappointment, a waste of space. And the painful part, those words didn't come from strangers. They came from the people who brought me into this world. My own parents. My name is Rhema. And this is my story. My parents said I was useless, invisible, and a complete disappointment. They said I would never be anything in life. They compared me to my sister Lois, the golden one, the perfect daughter. And when I tried to prove my worth, they laughed. They said I was too slow, too weak, and too much of a burden. So they abandoned me emotionally, pushed me aside like a mistake they wished they never made. But they were wrong. I wasn't what they thought. I was planning something else. Before I continue, please hit that subscribe button if you believe pain can be turned into power, because this story is about how I turned rejection into revenge. I'm writing this from Los Angeles, but I want to know, where are you watching from? Type your country in the comments. I'll be reading them all. Now, let's begin. Growing up, I was never the favorite. In our home, love felt like a competition. And I was always the one losing. Lois, she was the shining star. Every parent's dream. And me, I was the reminder that dreams don't always turn out perfect. I remember sitting by the window as a child, watching my mother braid Lois's hair before school. She'd smile at her, brush her shoulders and whisper, "You'll do great today." Then she'd glance at me, sigh, and say, "Rhema, try not to mess up again." Those words, they carved themselves deep into my mind. Day after day, year after year. My father was even worse. He'd say I was wasting space, that I'd never make it out there. And every time I tried to tell him about my dreams, to design clothes, to create something beautiful, he'd laugh and say, "People like you don't build empires. You serve the ones who do." I'd go to bed crying quietly so they wouldn't hear me. And when morning came, I'd wipe my tears, paste on a smile, and pretend everything was fine. You see, they thought their words would break me. But all they did was plant the fire that would one day make me unstoppable. At school, teachers saw it too, the difference between Lois and me. Lois always had new dresses, better grades, more attention. I was the quiet one who always looked tired. No one knew that after school. I worked small jobs just to afford sketchbooks and pencils, because I believed one day my designs would speak louder than their insults ever could. But in that house, belief wasn't enough. Love wasn't free. Everything I did was compared to Lois. Every mistake became a reason to remind me I was a failure. There was one night I'll never forget. Dinner was silent, until my father looked at me and said, "Rhema, you're 16. What exactly will you become? Because right now you're nothing." I looked at him, speechless. Then my mother added, "Your sister has a future. You'll just be her shadow." Those words cut deeper than any knife. And when Lois smiled politely, pretending not to agree, that's when I realized I wasn't just unloved. I was unwanted. But here's the thing about being unwanted. Teaches you how to survive on your own. That night I went to my room, closed the door, and whispered to myself, "One day you'll regret this." I didn't know when or how, but I knew I'd find a way to rise so high, they'd have no choice but to see me. And that was the moment my story truly began. They said I was nothing. But nothing was just the beginning. I was 17 when I realized love in our home had rules. Rules that only worked in Lois's favor. She failed, they comforted her. If I failed, they called it proof. I tried harder, maybe too hard. I cleaned the house, did everyone's laundry, cooked dinner every night after school. Not because I wanted praise, but because I thought maybe, just maybe, love could be earned. Never was. One evening my mother came home early. Lois had an upcoming scholarship interview, and everyone was fussing over her outfit. My sketches were on the table, designs I'd stayed up all night drawing. My mother glanced at them, frowned, and said, "Stop wasting time with this nonsense. Help your sister iron her clothes. I nodded silently, but inside something in me sank. That same week my father's car broke down. I overheard him telling Lois he couldn't afford repairs yet. So I took the little money I'd saved from after-school jobs, and I gave it to him. Every single dollar. He didn't even look at me. He just took it and said, "Finally, you're useful for something." No thank you. No smile. Just that. That night, I stared at the empty envelope in my hand and whispered, "One day, I'll buy cars you'll never touch." But for now I kept sacrificing. I believed goodness would eventually be seen. When Lois graduated high school with honors, my parents threw her a huge party. Everyone came. I helped plan the entire thing. Decorations, food, music, all me. At the end of the night, Mom hugged Lois and said, "You make this family proud." Then she turned to me and said, "Don't forget to clean up after everyone leaves." So while they laughed and took pictures, I stood in the kitchen washing dishes, tears dripping silently into the sink. I didn't even realize Pliu was there. Our neighbor, 3 years older, kind eyes, always quiet. He saw me crying. He didn't say much. Just handed me a napkin and whispered, "One day you'll have people cleaning up after you." I smiled weakly. Didn't believe him. Not yet. Time passed. I kept helping my family even when it hurt. When my mom fell sick briefly, I took double shifts at a small diner to buy her medicine. She got better, and credited Lois for praying. Never once mentioned my name. Still I stayed. Because family was family, right? Even when it breaks you. But there's something about silent suffering. It builds an edge inside you. A sharpness no one sees coming. By 19 I'd learned to hide my dreams. I'd draw late at night when everyone was asleep. Sketch after sketch, piece after piece. Dresses, shoes, handbags, all from imagination. I didn't know where these designs would take me. But I knew one thing, they were my escape. Then came the breaking point. Lois got accepted into a university abroad. Everyone celebrated for weeks. When I asked my father if I could apply too, he laughed. "Study? You? With what money? You're barely smart enough for community college." That laughter, that sound haunted me for years. I walked back to my room slowly, each step heavier than the last. I sat on my bed, held my sketchbook close, and whispered to myself, "I'll make it without you." And maybe heaven heard me that night, because that was when my real journey began. A week later I left home. No dramatic goodbye. Just a note on my desk that said, "Thank you for raising me. I'll do the rest myself." I carried nothing but a small bag, my sketches, and a burning desire to prove them wrong. That night, as I sat on a cold bus station bench, alone, hungry, tired, I looked up at the sky and said, "If no one believes in me, God, at least let my story matter someday." And that was the start of the version of Rhema the world would soon meet. The first few months away from home were the hardest. I slept on a friend's couch, took small jobs, sometimes skipped meals just to survive. But I was free. Free from the constant reminder that I was a disappointment. Freedom was cold, but it was mine. One afternoon, while working at a small diner downtown, a woman walked in, elegant, confident, and dressed in a way that made the entire restaurant fall silent. Her name was Anne. She owned a fashion startup in the city. And fate, or maybe grace, made her notice my sketches lying beside the cash register. She flipped through the pages slowly, her eyes lighting up with every drawing. "These are incredible," she said. "Who designed them?" I hesitated, then whispered, "I did." She smiled. "How would you like to intern with me?" That one sentence changed everything. Within weeks, I was in her studio, surrounded by fabrics, designs, and people who actually believed in ideas. And was firm but fair. She taught me how to think bigger, how to refine every line, how to see beauty in imperfection. For the first time, someone saw me, not as a burden but as a possibility. She became my mentor. And the sister I never had. With every passing month I grew stronger, confident, hungry for success. By 21, I'd moved from intern to junior designer, and trusted me with projects, clients, and even her brand's reputation. But success always attracts eyes. And not all eyes look with love. That's when Pliu came back into my life. Older now, charming, soft-spoken, working as a photographer. He said he'd always believed in me. Said he wanted to help me build my own brand someday. I believed him. Everyone at the studio adored him. He'd bring coffee for the staff, laugh with clients, and take stunning photos that made my designs come alive. And loved his work too. And somewhere along the way, fell for him. He was my peace in a world that never gave me rest. Or so I thought. When Anne decided to take a break from the company to focus on her health, she left me temporarily in charge. It was everything I had worked for. Years of effort finally paying off. But the night before her flight, Pliu suggested we celebrate. He poured the wine, dimmed the lights, and said, "You've come so far, Rhema. I'm proud of you." Smiled. That was the last peaceful smile I'd have for a long time. A month later, Anne called unexpectedly. Her tone was cold. "I trusted you," she said. "How could you betray me?" My heart stopped. She told me her designs had been leaked. Her clients gone. Her brand collapsing. And every trace led back to me. I rushed to the office, confused, terrified, only to find Pliu gone. He'd cleared his desk. Vanished. Then I saw the news online. A new fashion brand using my designs. And there he was, Pliu, smiling beside a woman I'd never seen before, introducing my work as theirs. I dropped my phone. Fell to my knees. Everything I'd built. Everything I'd sacrificed, stolen. And never spoke to me again. My name was dragged, my reputation ruined, and my heart, shattered beyond repair. That night, I sat by the window in my small apartment, staring at the city lights. Every betrayal felt like a blade. My parents, my sister, now him. But pain does something strange to you. It either breaks you, or builds you. And that night I made a silent vow. I would never beg for validation again. I would rebuild, stronger, wiser, unrecognizable. That night Rhema the dreamer died. And Rhema the fighter was born. For weeks I disappeared from everyone. No calls. No messages. Just silence. My landlord had already given me an eviction notice. The walls of my apartment looked like a crime scene of dreams. Torn sketches, unpaid bills, empty cups of coffee. And every night I stared at the ceiling asking one question. Why me? I'd given everything I had. My loyalty, my love, my creativity. And in return the world gave me betrayal. But pain has a strange way of revealing who you really are. One evening I went out walking. No destination, just my feet leading the way. And I found myself standing outside an art museum in downtown Los Angeles. Inside there were paintings worth millions. Each stroke told a story of struggle, rejection, and redemption. And that's when it hit me, if they could turn pain into art, then so could I. I didn't have a studio. I didn't have money. But I had an idea. I started sketching again. This time not for approval, but for healing. I'd walk into small cafes. Ask the owners if I could sell my mini designs on the counter. Most said no. Few said maybe. But one old woman, Mrs. Alvarez, said yes. She owned a tiny coffee shop on 8th Street. And she let me display my sketches beside the pastries. Within a week, people started asking who made them. Within a month, I was getting small commissions. The name Rhema Designs started to whisper through the streets. It wasn't loud yet, but it was alive. Then came a miracle in human form, Lois. She was a creative director at a lifestyle magazine. She'd seen my sketches at the cafe and wanted to feature me in a small, emerging artist column. It was just a 2-page story. But it changed everything. In less than a month, my inbox was flooded with clients. Boutique owners, online stores, even influencers wanting collaborations. I was working 18-hour days, sketching until my hands cramped, packaging deliveries myself. But I didn't complain. Every ache was proof that I was rising again. Soon, a local investor noticed my work. A quiet, classy man named Mr. Blake. He offered to fund my first real collection. I named it Phoenix. Because that's what I had become. Burn. Broken. Reborn. The launch was modest, but it trended online within days. People loved the designs. Bold, fierce, unapologetic. Pieces that screamed confidence. The kind I'd once lacked. Then, one morning I received an email. From Pliu. Subject line, "Can we talk?" Froze. Every emotion I thought I'd buried came rushing back. He said he was sorry. Said the brand he'd started collapsed. The woman he partnered with left him. He'd lost everything. I read his message twice. Then deleted it. No reply. They thought I wouldn't rise again. They thought I couldn't recover. But I did. By 24, Rhema Designs had become a known name. We'd expanded beyond sketches, into full fashion lines. Our designs were on runways in Milan, New York, and Tokyo. I'd built an empire, one pain at a time. And as success grew, so did the whispers, especially back home. Because somewhere across the ocean, a wedding was being planned. My sister and was getting married. The same and who once said, "You'll never be anything, Rhema." My parents were overjoyed. They hadn't spoken to me in years, but they made sure everyone knew how well their favorite daughter was doing. Then, one afternoon, an invitation arrived. Embossed, golden, with my name written perfectly across it. For a moment I almost threw it away. But something in me whispered, "No, not yet." It wasn't anger. It wasn't pride. It was purpose. Because that day wasn't just for Anne's wedding, as my mum fondly calls her, in a way of making her feel special. Because that's the name of my grandma. It was going to be my stage. And for the first time in years I smiled. Not the broken kind, but the kind that comes when you know your time has finally arrived. The wedding date was set for June 14th. 6 months away. 6 months to plan the moment I'd been waiting for all my life. I wasn't going to crash their celebration. Whoa. I was going to arrive like the storm they never saw coming. First I called Lois. She was in Paris for a shoot, but when she heard the tone in my voice she said, "Rhema, whatever it is, I'm in." Then I called Mr. Blake. My investor, my quiet guardian angel. He smiled over the phone. "Time to make a statement?" he asked. "Time to make history," I replied. We began preparation in silence. Every move, intentional. Every detail precise. My team didn't even know the real reason behind the event we were planning. They thought it was just another Rhema Designs brand campaign. But deep down it was more than that. It was the rebirth of a name they once mocked. I started working on a new collection. The Return. Every piece told my story. Shattered fabrics stitched with gold threads. Bold designs inspired by scars that healed beautifully. It wasn't just fashion. It was art born from pain. Weeks passed. The invitations for the wedding flooded social media. Anne's fiancé was from a wealthy family, the kind that loved grandeur. My parents posted photos of the mansion, the diamond ring, the bridal shower. And every caption felt like a reminder that I didn't belong. I didn't comment. I didn't even like a post. But behind the scenes, I was crafting something unforgettable. By May, my brand had grown beyond control. An international magazine listed me as one of the top 5 emerging fashion powerhouses of the year. Orders were coming in from places I'd never even visited. And when the editor asked me where I got my inspiration, I said, "From those who told me I couldn't." That quote went viral. 3 weeks before the wedding, I received a message from an unknown number. "Rhema, is that really you?" It was my mother. I stared at the phone for a long time. She said she'd heard about my success. Said people in town were talking. And then she asked if I was coming for the wedding. Typed one word. "Yes." She replied with a crying emoji and said she couldn't wait to see me. But I didn't reply again. Not yet. I booked a private hangar in Los Angeles. Rented one of the most elegant private jets in the city. Matte white exterior, gold detailing, champagne interior. It wasn't about showing off. It was about reclaiming the narrative. For years they told me I was nothing. Now they were about to watch me step out of everything they said I couldn't be. The night before the flight, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every insult, every tear. Every night I felt invisible. But instead of pain I felt peace. Because tomorrow wasn't about revenge. It was about closure. June 14th. The day had finally come. The sun was out. The sky looked like it had been painted just for me. As I boarded the jet, my assistant asked, "Ma'am, are you nervous?" Smiled. "No. Just ready." The hum of the engine felt like music. Soft, confident, powerful. The kind of sound that says, "You made it." We landed right on schedule. The same small city where my childhood dreams were buried. And when the hangar doors opened, I saw a familiar face. Anne's friend. The one who used to mock my old clothes. Her jaw dropped when she saw me step out of the jet in my custom silk dress. One of my own designs, of course. She stammered, "Rhema? Is that really you?" I smiled politely. Last I checked. By the time I arrived at the wedding venue, whispers were already spreading like wildfire. Phones pointed at me. Guests murmured. Even the band paused mid-song. I didn't need to announce my presence. The silence did that for me. My parents froze when they saw me. My father's hand trembled as he adjusted his tie. My mother blinked like she was seeing a ghost. "Rhema," she whispered. He nodded. "Hi, Mom." The same woman who once said I'd never be worth anything, now staring at me like she was witnessing a miracle. And walked in next, dressed like a princess. But the glow on her face dimmed the moment she saw me. "Wow," she said softly. "You actually came." Smiled. Of course. Wouldn't miss it for the world. The ceremony continued, but all through it, I could feel eyes turning toward me. Every relative, every neighbor, every person who once laughed behind my back, now whispering my name like it had suddenly become sacred. When it was time for the family photos, my father cleared his throat and said, "Rhema, come stand beside us." I looked at him, the same man who once told me I'd embarrass the family if I ever showed my face again. And I simply said, "Are you sure?" He nodded slowly, guilt in his eyes. And for the first time, I didn't feel small standing beside them. Felt taller. Wiser. Free. Dinner was served. Laughter echoed around the hall, but none of it reached me. I sat there, surrounded by the same people who once called me the mistake child. The same people who said I'd bring shame to the family. And yet, they were now too scared to even breathe in my direction. And sat at the head of the table beside her husband, glowing with pride. But beneath that glow, I saw something else, discomfort. She kept glancing at me like my very existence was stealing her spotlight. Then my father stood to make a toast. He spoke about family, about love, about unity. And I couldn't help but wonder, where was all that when I needed it? Halfway through his speech, he cleared his throat and looked at me. "We're proud of all our children," he said. "Especially Rhema, who has made quite a name for herself." The crowd clapped. My mother dabbed her eyes with a napkin, pretending to be emotional. And I sat there, expressionless, because I knew what this was. It wasn't pride. It was performance. They weren't proud of me. They were proud of how useful my success made them look. After the toast, Anne approached me. Her smile was painted on. "Everyone's talking about your arrival," she said. "A private jet. That's impressive." I smiled faintly. "I just wanted to be on time." She chuckled nervously, sipping her champagne. Then, leaning closer, she whispered, "You really had to make the whole event about you, didn't you?" I turned slowly to face her. "Funny," I said. "You never minded attention when it came from my pain." Her smile faded. "What's that supposed to mean?" I took a deep breath. "It means I remember every word you said, and every time you mocked me. Every time you told me I'd never become anything. Every time you and Mom laughed behind my back." Her jaw tightened. "That was years ago. You're still holding grudges." "No," I said softly. "I'm holding memories. Grudges fade. Lessons don't." For a moment she had no words. Then she sneered. Whatever, Rhema. You always loved being dramatic. I smiled again. No, I just learned that silence can be louder than shouting. And today my silence is deafening. I stood up and excused myself, leaving her frozen in place. As I walked toward the exit, I felt a gentle tap on my arm. It was my mother. Rhema, she said softly. I know we weren't perfect, but we're still family. I turned to her, calm but cold. Family isn't blood, Mom. It's love. And you gave yours to the ones who made you comfortable, not the one who needed it most. Her eyes glistened. I'm sorry, she whispered. I smiled sadly. Keep your apology. I already forgave you when I stopped needing your approval. The entire hall had gone silent now. All eyes on me. Every ear hanging on to every word. I looked around, then said clearly, don't pity me. Don't praise me. Just remember, sometimes the ones you dismiss become the ones you can't ignore. I picked up my clutch and walked out, leaving them in a silence that burned deeper than any insult. Outside, the night breeze kissed my face. My driver opened the car door. Reporters were already taking pictures. Flashes lighting up the driveway. Someone shouted, Rhema, what inspired your success? I turned, smiled, and said, my failures. Then I entered the car. As we drove back toward the hangar, I felt a strange calm. Not satisfaction. Not pride. Because revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's just about becoming untouchable. The night sky shimmered above me as the jet's engine came alive. The runway lights reflected off its wings, like they too were bowing in respect. I leaned back in my seat, closed my eyes, and exhaled everything I had been holding in for years. It was over. Not just the wedding. Not just the pain. The version of me that needed their validation. Gone. As the jet began to move, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Rhema, thank you for coming. You didn't have to, but you did. I'm proud of you. It was from my father. For a moment I didn't know how to feel. Grateful. Angry. Indifferent. Then I smiled softly. Because deep down I knew. I didn't go there for them to be proud. I went there to remind myself of who I'd become. I typed back one sentence. Thank you, Dad. Take care of Mom. And that was it. Closure. As the jet lifted into the clouds, I looked down at the city lights fading beneath me. That city had once held my tears, my fears, my rejection. Now it was looking up at me, literally. Life has a beautiful way of turning tables quietly. No noise. No chaos. Just grace. When I landed back in Los Angeles, my assistant was waiting with a bouquet of roses and a smile. How was the wedding? She asked. Smiled. It was necessary. The next morning, headlines were everywhere. Fashion icon Rhema attends family wedding in stunning arrival. Fans call her the definition of grace and revenge. Thousands of comments flooded in. People from around the world shared my story. Women who'd been told they were worthless. Men who'd been doubted, dreamers who'd been mocked. They all saw themselves in me. And in that moment I realized something. Maybe my story wasn't just revenge. Maybe it was a reminder. A reminder that pain can either poison you or push you. That rejection can either break you or build you. That sometimes you don't need to fight for validation. You just need to evolve until your existence becomes undeniable. Soon, my name wasn't just a whisper in fashion circles. It became a movement. From Paris to Milan. From Dubai to Tokyo. Rhema Designs started hosting exclusive showcases. Our collections sold out within hours. Celebrities wore my designs on red carpets. Magazines called me the woman who turned humiliation into haute couture. We opened new branches across Europe, London, Rome, and Madrid, each one carrying a piece of my journey stitched into its walls. Every runway, every spotlight, every headline wasn't just success. It was redemption. Woven in silk and resilience. Months later, Rhema Designs opened its first global flagship store in Los Angeles. We had over 100 employees, dozens of international clients, and a waiting list that stretched into the next year. And every time I walked into that building, I whispered the same words. They thought I was a mistake. They thought I'd never rise. They thought they buried me. But they didn't know. I was a seed. Now I share my story not to boast, but to remind someone watching this right now. The people who doubt you are often the same ones who'll one day applaud you. Don't rush revenge. Live it, because the best revenge is transformation. My name is Rhema, and this is my story. If you've ever been doubted, if someone ever made you feel like you were never enough, let this be your reminder that your story isn't over yet. I was once that forgotten child. The one who was told I'd never amount to anything. But life had other plans. So don't stop believing in yourself. Don't stop fighting for your peace. Because one day, your silence will speak louder than every insult they threw at you. Now before you scroll away, tell me where you're watching from. Let's connect in the comments. I love knowing where my stories travel. And if this story touched you, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about hurting them, it's about showing them what healing looks like. Until next time, stay strong, stay graceful, and never forget, your comeback will always speak louder than your pain.